Welcome back everyone to another video. I'm so excited to film this because I love to talk about films that are not popular, and in this case, like you read by the title, we're gonna go through some horror movies that I think you probably haven't heard about. So sit back, relax, grab a drink, grab a snack, and welcome back to another video.
Jungle of love.
Now before we start, if I start to melt, it's because here in the UK it's supposed to be a cold country, but no, right now it's over 40 degrees, 41 degrees, and I'm dying, I'm melting. These films, they don't have, they have barely 1,000 reviews on Letterboxd. Like only 2 of these films have 1,800 reviews and the other film has 2,200 reviews. I decided to include those movies because they're not well spoken about, but the rest of the movies from this list, they barely have even 800 reviews. 2 movies of this list has just 120 reviews, and I think that should be illegal. So without further ado, let's start with the first film, and that will be Superhost. Don't forget to like and survive. 2 travel vloggers check into a vacation rental with a host that will do anything for a good review. Now Superhost has over 1,800 reviews on Letterboxd, so it's a bit popular, but at the same time I don't see many people talking about it, and I think it's because it went directly into streaming to Shudder, and Shudder obviously is only a platform for horror fans, so this movie was not like in a bigger streaming platform like Prime, Disney Plus and Netflix, if that makes sense. So Superhost, I think was so simple and so realistic. One of the main things that I love about Superhost is the villain. I think it was one of the best villains from 2020. I think her acting was phenomenal. I think even though this movie has only 3 characters, I think they knew how to work together, and I felt identified because obviously the characters from this film are YouTubers, and obviously that made me feel identified. Obviously they are a couple, they go on trips to Airbnbs, and I've done that with my partner in the past, so obviously you feel that connection. I have to say that this film is not like the scariest film of all time, but it's very creepy, especially at the end and especially how the film concludes. The next popular film from this list will be the Slumber Party Massacre, the remake from 2021. You know the drill. Dana, daughter of the only survivor of a massacre in 1983, is going on a weekend trip with her friends. After their car breaks down in the very same town where her mother once fought the driller killer, Dana and her friends must come face to face with the man who has haunted her mother's life for the last 30 years. Now, first things first, if you are queer, this film has to be watched by you, because this film screams queer everywhere. And I have to say that I didn't like this film the first time that I watched it, and if you check one of my Letterboxd record videos, you will see that I gave 1.5 stars, and I regret myself. I will never forgive myself for not liking this film at the first, but like my partner says, rewatching matters. And when I rewatched this film for the second time after getting the Blu-ray, I was obsessed. I think this movie is so clever at what it's doing. I think this movie, it knows that it's cheesy, it knows that it's camp, but I really enjoy it, and I think this movie really knew how to take the original concept from like the first film and made it modern. Now, let's start with the lower films. So the first film that I'm gonna talk about is The Retreat, released in 2022. The only way out is to fight. Renee and Valerie, a couple at crossroads in their relationship, leave the city to spend the week at a remote cabin with friends. But when they arrive, their friends are nowhere to be found. As they stumble through their relationship woods, they discover they are being hunted by a group of militant extremists who are determined to exterminate them. Now, first things first, I'm so glad that this slasher, this horror, has a lesbian couple as the leads, and they also have a gay couple. And I just love that because obviously we know that queer representation is not often seen in horror. This slasher, I really like that it's very slow, but at the same time it makes sense why it's slow, but when the action happens you feel entertained. Some of the kills were so impressive and were so satisfying. And I really like the villain because the villain is just homophobia, if that makes sense. Because obviously we know homophobia is a disgusting disease and it's a horrible villain. So I really like how this movie portrayed that concept, if that makes sense. And obviously I love the end, and I just love the whole vibes because you feel sad for these characters, you want them to survive, so you root for them. I would really recommend this, especially if you are into slashers, obviously. The next film will be Creep, and not the fan footage. Creep from 2004. Your journey terminates here. Trapped in London subway station, a woman who is being pursued by a potential attacker heads into the unknown labyrinth of tunnels beneath the city's streets. Now, I just have to say that this movie came out in a great era, which is early 2000s, and this movie has only over 830 reviews on Letterboxd, and this movie came out almost 18 years ago. So imagine how underrated and unpopular this movie is. I have to say that I loved the landscape from this film because it's the London subways, and someone that lives in London, those places are very scary. And I think this movie really knows how to work with just a character and the landscape, even though the lead, sometimes the acting was not the best. But if you are familiar with The Conjuring 2, this woman right here, that actress is the lead in Creep, so that's a great fun fact. I really recommend this because it's a very short film and you will feel intrigued. Maybe you can feel scared, and would really recommend this film to people that want to get into horror. The next two films will be the Wolf Creek duo. Now, I'm not gonna talk about these films at all because I did a whole comparison over those two films for my new series, which is Let's Talk About Horror Movie Duos, and that was the first film for those series. The next film, and I'm so excited to talk about it, is Splinter from 2008. It will get under your skin. When their plans for a nature trip go bad, Polly and boyfriend Seth decide to check into a motel. On their way, they are kidnapped by a low-rental crooks, Dennis and Lacey, who take the victims and their stuff to a nearby gas station. Along the way, they encounter an increasingly terrifying horde of parasites, and if any of them intend to survive, they will have to outsmart the deadly organisms. Now, this film is criminally underrated because the concept from this film is amazing, like it's lovely. I think this slasher is one of the most unique slashers I have ever seen, and I don't want to give spoilers because you will know why. You will know why this is so unique and so terrifying. I love the score from this film. You feel the kills, you feel the bones cracking, the blood, the skin. I love that. I think also that how this movie worked with its landscape. I think the landscape becomes another character in this film, and I absolutely loved it. This film takes mostly place in the grocery store, and I think that was lovely. If you are into cabin fever, I think you will like this film. But don't get me wrong, it's not like cabin fever. I just mean you don't expect who the killer is gonna be, if that makes sense. Now, the next thing will be Bloodline from 2018. Ivan values family above anything else, and anyone who gets between him, his wife, and a newborn son learns that the hard way. But when it comes to violent tendencies, it seems the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Now, I just love this movie. I think it was such a great slasher again because at the same time, I didn't see the concept coming, and it felt like for what the movie wants to give, it feels realistic, and I love the kills. I love our villain, and it's rarely to say that you love a villain in a horror film, but I really enjoyed this villain because you kind of feel the reasons why he wants to do this, and the movie explains that. The next film, and I'm so sad to talk about this film because it just has 120 reviews, and this movie came out in 2008, so it's been 15 years, and this movie doesn't even have 200 reviews. That will be Was from 2008. Will you kill the one you love to save yourself from death? There is something horribly wrong with the bodies found in the dark city streets. Some of them are mutilated, while others have a precise accretion carved into their flesh. Detective Eddie Argo and his new partner Helen Westcott unearth the meaning of the odd equation and realize each victim is being offered a gruesome choice: kill your loved ones or be killed. The first thing that I want to say is that this concept is horrible. Like, did you hear what I just said? Like, the movie is giving options of killing yourself or killing your loved ones, and it's like, that's horrible. So obviously you can feel that this movie got inspired by Saw. It's a bit similar to Saw, especially in a few acts, but I love that because Saw is one of my favorite horror films of all time. And also I have to say that I loved that there is a gay couple. I absolutely loved that because I didn't expect to see a gay couple in this film, so I was amazed when I saw them, and it also was very sad. I almost cried while watching them. Our horror queen Melissa George stars in this film, and I don't know, I think this movie is very mostly thriller than horror, but obviously it has many horror elements like the gore and the atmosphere in general. But I just love how this movie is so well paced. Like, we follow our criminals and at the same time we follow our police officers, and they really work together. Now the next film will be Trespassers from 2018. You can stop what's coming. Two dysfunctional couples rent a modern luxury desert home for the weekend, hoping to sort out their messed up lives. Just as they are about to settle in for a fun night, a neighbor turns up at their front door saying she has a car trouble, but soon they discover the person they let into their home may have a nefarious intent. Now, if you know me, you know that I love slashers and I love home invasion, and this movie combines both. And I love that. I love the kills. I also like the characters because they grow on you, and they just like, they have a storyline behind, like they have a storyline before the events happens, and that's something that I really appreciate in slashers. And if you were a fan of like The Rental from 2020, I think you will enjoy this film. Now the next and the last two films, the first one will be a found footage, and that's MOM, Mothers of Monsters. A mother's worst nightmare. A distraught mother suspects her teenage son is a psychopath who may shoot up his high school, but when he outsmarts the mental health care system, she's forced to take matters into her own hands. Now, this film was horrible in a good way. I think the antagonist in this film is horrible. Like, he was so creepy, so disgusting. Like, you will hate this villain, but I think that's good, if that makes sense. I think what happens in this film, you feel so bad for the mom. You really want her to survive, you root for her all the time. You will hate the villain, and I think those two concepts work so well in this film. But I think this is what was one of the best films from 2020, but unfortunately didn't have enough recognition. This has just like 500 reviews, and for me it's also one of the best found footage out there. And I don't know, I just really liked how this film was so realistic, because I think many relationships between mom and sons, they are like the ones from the movie, and I think that's terrifying. And the last film from this video with just 318 reviews is The Dare from 2018. Let the Evil Out. A rare family night for Jay takes a brutal twist when he awakens in a basement with 3 other prisoners as their vengeful captor runs riot. Jay engages in a twist battle to solve the puzzle to his past and save his family's future. Now, The Dare. I think this villain is so underrated because this villain is horrible. This villain is so strong, it's so badass, and I was so terrified with this villain because this villain was a normal guy that you can find anywhere and you would never suspect. And I really like that this movie explains why this character is doing this, because obviously you would like to know why someone will do something like this, and this movie explained that. And I love how the movie progresses by itself. There is definitely a film that I would recommend to anyone that is into like slashers, if it's into like Saw, if that makes sense, or like kidnapping situations, if that makes sense. So yeah, those were the films that I think you haven't heard of. I think these films are very underrated. If you have heard about these films, let me know in the comment section below. What do you think? If you haven't, Will you check some of these films? Let me know, and let me know which films do you think people haven't heard about. I would love that, because I would love to make a second part, third part. So thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoy it. Have a nice end of the week, and I will see you soon. Bye bye.